Good morning, everyone. Today is January 27th, and this is the Economic Development Committee. It's our first work session for the year, so Happy New Year, a month after. We have 3 items today, and the reason why we're having these items, they are basically budget follow-up questions. The reason why we're doing them is that I felt like last year, we were in the budget dealing with everything and catching up with everything at once, which I think it's good to have a session, as we're gonna have today, talking about the things that these different groups have accomplished with the money that we allocated in the last budget so far, and what are gonna be the needs for the future. So see it as a pre-budget conversation, helping us be ready by the time we start voting on multi-million-dollar items. So with that, we are going to start today with Visit Montgomery. If the group from Visit Montgomery can please sit with us, that'll be great. I'm going to see Vicky here. And with that, I'm going to turn it to staff and then to our folks from Visit Montgomery. Go ahead.
Sounds good. Good morning. Yeah, for this, I'll just run through the packet, and there's no presentation for this one. There are a few sort of suggested questions and considerations sprinkled throughout, but I'll just sort of go through the packet and then turn it over to you all for discussion. So just by way of background, the Conference and Visitors Bureau, NDA, is what's otherwise known as Visit Montgomery, which is our destination marketing organization, whose primary mission is to ultimately support tourism and grow that part of our economy. They are funded by a 7% of the hotel motel tax, which is a minimum, and then that can be supplemented through budget decisions in any given year. But as a result of being tied to that revenue source, their revenues can fluctuate from year to year. Just a brief review of last year's budget discussions in for FY25. The county executive had recommended $2.36 million, which was $165,905 above that 7% dedicated tax, and it was intended to support the hiring of an agritourism marketing position, but ultimately that position was not funded, and they received the 7% of the hotel motel tax plus inflation. And just from some of the fiscal plan memos that you've all seen over the last few weeks, just wanted to note that the county's hotel motel tax revenues seem to be declining again for FY26 by approximately 9.43%, and so that may require some discussion about the implications to Visit Montgomery's budget. In the next section, we'll just sort of run very briefly through some of the accomplishments and progress they've made on their work program. They've launched a new website and updated branding, which also includes a hotel reservation platform, which gives them a lot of data that they can analyze and use to better understand the market. They are also working to implement 4 federal grants. They're listed here on page 2, the Meetings Marketing Collaboration, Agritourism Branding, C&O Canal Collaboration, and the MoCo Eats Food and Beverage Showcase and Hospitality Conference. So you may wish for some more information on those. Visit Montgomery has also directly sourced 7 sales wins in FY25 so far. Those are listed on the table on page 3. They estimate the economic impact spinoff of spending and things like that is about $1.1 million, that it accounted for nearly 5,000 room nights in this fiscal year. Visit Montgomery also attends a lot of conferences and trade shows where they source a lot of this business. They attended 10 in FY24, plan to attend 10 in FY25. The total cost of this is roughly $50,000, and we just point that out because there are other conferences that they note that they'd like to attend but haven't attended. So you may want to understand the impact of going to those and what the trade-offs might be. Just a brief aside on agritourism and Visit Montgomery's role, just because it was discussed last year with regards to the agritourism position. Even though that position wasn't funded, they continue to do work in this space. They've been implementing a rural branding strategy as a result of an economic development grant, and they've hired a consultant to implement this, and you can get an update on the progress of that work. They see their role as somewhat unique in sort of supporting the marketing aspects of agritourism businesses specifically. They've organized, several initiatives to do so, including the Tastemakers Trail, and continuing to update that every year. They have noted that a full-time agritourism staff member would increase their capacity to provide more marketing support directly to businesses. And so you may want to understand how they're or what level of support they're providing now without that, and what enhancements that position could provide. I wanted to provide a little bit of update, and Ms. Groff can get into the details here, but there are 4 aspects really of the rural branding strategy that they've outlined, and they can provide updates on. The other big thing that we wanted to point out was just all the various data that they have, and some of these are new. And it's really powerful. I think they're learning a lot about the county and the economy in this industry, but also it's an opportunity for you all to realize the type of information that's out there. So as you have your own things that you want to investigate, bills, resolutions, whatever it is, there's a great resource and a lot of resources here that are probably unexplored to this point. So a lot of things to leverage there. One theme throughout all of these budget discussions today and also going forward was thinking about how to increase their level of service for all these agencies. So regardless of the sort of context of the budget discussion, which is a balanced budget across all county departments and divisions, this is sort of like, what is the optimal budget for an organization without that constraint? What are ways that you could spend more money to either enhance the services you currently provide or add new services? So in terms of existing services, Visit Montgomery's identified that they would do more sponsoring of events. They would do more familiarization tours. They'd establish maybe an influencer program and enhance their advertising budget. There's no specific, I think there's just the cost estimate for the sponsorships, but you can ask to understand what roughly the budget implications might be of doing those other things. And in terms of new services that they could add, they wanted to recommend again that a new agritourism employee would enhance their services, potentially investing in a new public relations employee to enhance that, and also establish a visitor experience manager and brand ambassador program. And all of these have cost estimates that you can see on page 8. And then also adding to their data portfolio with Placer AI, which provides really real-time location-based data about people visiting places. Finally, they also provided a few ideas about how to grow tourism in the county generally. Obviously, they're subject matter experts, and so whether or not it's them implementing it, they think these would be worthwhile investments. One is the ongoing Sports Tourism Task Force and continuing to support their work. They're currently working through a facility needs assessment, which will hopefully shortlist a few recommendations for your all consideration, and then I think they will request a financial feasibility assessment, which would probably require some funding. They also recommend developing a retail space or a mobile visitor center, purchasing a branded van that could conduct tours, such as for the Tastemakers Trail, creating a shuttle service for Rockville Pike from downtown Bethesda to Congressional Plaza, and establishing a grant fund that can be utilized to attract larger events to be held in the county. So with all of that, that's the packet, and turn it over to Ms. Groff for any additional remarks.
I think Mr. Ali summarized the entire presentation that we're about to hear. But Ms. Groff, what a pleasure is to see you here, and thank you so much for all that work that you have been doing, especially on the Sports Tourism Task Force that you're a member of. With that, please take it away.
Good morning. Thank you, Councilmember Fani-González. And it's great to see all of our council member friends this morning, and I appreciate the opportunity to bring you up to speed on our work. I do want to also point out that our fiscal year 2024 community report on tourism is available. It's our final report for that fiscal year, which is really important to see progress from FY23 to FY24. In FY25, year to date, the hotel, or let me back up, from FY23 to FY24, hotel tax collections were up 11%. So hotel tax collections from 23 to 24 were up $2.4 million. Year to date in FY25 through November. So the data is always lagging because the hotels need time to report the data. Year to date, fiscal year 25 through November, it's only up about 1%. So since the recovery from the pandemic, we saw a really good lift. Most of it was through average daily rate, for the hotel's average daily rate. And so now you're starting to see kind of a leveling off, which is normal. So I did want to share that with you. I also wanted to share that Smith Travel Data, which is our resource for hotel data, year to date, we're up about 1%. So it pretty much matches the collections. The ADR is up 3% and revenue per available room is up 4%. I did want to note that in December, we were pretty excited. Our occupancy was up 5% year over year. And we want to take credit for that for Letitia, who's behind me, our senior marketing manager, who implemented a holiday campaign. With our partners at the Maryland State Office of Tourism, we've really pushed for overnight stays during the month of December. So we're excited to see that lift. And before I forget, team joining me today, Maria Bardos, our strategy business development manager, Letitia Engel, senior marketing manager, and Lee Calicut, who's our on the road senior sales manager, who's out selling the county half the year. So I did want to recognize them. If you'd like, I can talk to you about the grants that are kind of an anomaly. This is actually ARPA money that we received through from the Economic Development Administration through the Department of Commerce and their tourism division. So there are 4 grants. The first grant is the C&O Canal collaboration. This collaboration is with our partners in Hagerstown, Washington County, Allegheny County, and Frederick County. We've worked together in the past to market this treasure, but these funds that we received for this initiative really helped us ramp up what we're doing as a team. This grant will be followed by another grant that I am not leading the charge on this time. I'm taking a break, but our friends in Frederick are applying for a grant through the state and then to the federal government. And it is called a corridor management plan that will help us continue to develop the experience of the C&O Canal from Montgomery County all the way to Allegheny County. So there is a PS in that particular grant that we're working on, and that's about an $800,000 grant. If approved, we have committed to $6,000 a year out of our budget as a match, each DMO to match to keep this program continued. The second grant is the meetings marketing grant. This came about because the Maryland Department of Commerce Tourism Division markets to student groups. There's a sports tourism office that markets to the sports market. We have an international marketing initiative, but we do not have a meetings marketing initiative through the state travel tourism office. So my friends in Baltimore, Howard, Anne Arundel, and Annapolis, and Prince George's County came together and applied for a grant. We got a $250,000 grant to launch what we've called Meet in Maryland. So instead of Lee going to a trade show, sitting by himself as Montgomery County, and there's 18 in the country, he is now able to go and be with a collaboration of Maryland friends. And so we are creating a model to continue that program through a destination marketing organizations, putting money into a fund and getting a match from the state. So we do plan to create the model and continue that program. The third grant is a rural branding strategy marketing grant. So we sent out an RFP and have hired a company called Civic Brand that does a lot of work in the rural space. And this program and project is now at a point where we are implementing surveying to hear what residents and visitors think about our rural area of the county, not just the agricultural reserve, but other areas within the rural space, to get a kind of a customer sentiment on what they think about that area of the county. The next step for that grant are focus groups by categories: cultural, wellness, food resilience. There are 4 or 5 categories where we'll hold virtual focus groups will be the next step. And then at that point, the team we've hired will come together and give us some recommendations for the future. The last grant is the MoCo Eats Food and Beverage Showcase. We all pride ourselves on the culinary diversity of our community and all the restaurants that we have here available to us. So this grant is one of our smaller grants, but it's seed money. We're going to have a food and beverage and hospitality showcase March 30 and 31 at the Hilton Rockville. Sunday, March 30th, will be a day where our vendors can showcase food and beverage offerings and tastings and samplings and be together, and consumers will be invited to that. Day 2 is a hospitality conference, Monday, March 31st. This is a time and a place where we're going to bring together not just the food and beverage industry, but anything hospitality, where we can learn and be in breakout sessions and network. They will also be able to network with the vendors from the previous day. I think that's all 4 grants. Any questions so far?
Let's hold the questions until you're done with your presentations, and then I'll open it up. Thank you.
I just have a couple other notes from the packet this morning. The page 3 on the wins, sales wins, I just want to add that year to date, the sales division has booked 16,000 room nights. These are just some of the higher room night bookings that you see under sales wins, but altogether from July through December, the sales division's booked 16,000 room nights. On page 4, when we talk more about agritourism, I do want to note that we have connected with the Germantown initiative that's working on placemaking, and we see some opportunities to make sure that we are communicating and working together on both of those strategies. Another comment I wanted to make about agritourism and its importance is that having resources assigned to marketing and developing this experience is going to bring more visitors to the community. There aren't a lot of places for people to stay in the rural area of the county, but they can visit the rural area and also spend their money and stay overnight in our urban areas. So it's really important to us. Our job is not just destination marketing, but it's destination development and creating experiences for visitors. And so that's why we've kind of attached to this agritourism theme. We also noticed during the pandemic that people became much more aligned with the outdoors and recreation, and it's something we offer well here, and so we want to continue to showcase that. Everything in our social media and website year to date, it's all up. Everything is well above where we were last year. And so with that, I will take questions.
Thank you so much for all your efforts. I do think you have a tremendous team, and I can see the value of your work and the impact that you have done in economic development for Montgomery County. Anybody wants to start? Councilmember Marilyn Balcombe.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank the team. They do a great job, so thank you. Thank you all. Just a couple plugs first. Thank you for the survey. For anybody out there, the survey's still up, brandruralmontgomery.com. It's so important to get a wide response for the survey. So we've been pushing it up county, but we need to hear from others too. So that plug. And then the other is the app, your app. I use it. It comes in really handy, like for the farm tour and trying to navigate to see how many farms you can go to in a day. Those 2 plugs. Questions, 2 questions. One is, you know, we're doing a lot with workforce, and what have you heard, and especially with the new administration and concerns about our workforce, do you have concerns about what's happening with the hospitality workforce, particularly in hotels, and if you've heard or seen anything yet?
So since the pandemic, things have really settled nicely. What jobs came back are back, and you know, some hotels I'm sure have had to maybe not have as many employees as they had before the pandemic, but technology also changes so quickly that changes the workforce. Mm-hmm. We are seeing, as of late last week, some potential challenges with travel being cut or meetings, you know, not being held. And so we really have to keep a pulse on that, because that will impact our community. As you know, we have 18 federal government agencies that bring a lot of business to our community. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay,
So
great,
yes.
thank you. And then from the perspective of your interface with the MCEDC, Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, hospitality is one of their primary industries. So what is your interface with them, and how do you work with them?
So we're co-located, which is great. We share space. I also share space with my friend Anthony Featherstone, who's here from WorkSource Montgomery. We're all in the same space. MCDC has staff assigned to the hospitality sector, so we stay in touch with the staff that are assigned to that sector. We take ideas to them. If they have a prospect, we can, you know, share information or data. So it's really just about being communicating.
Mm-hmm. And I thought it was 2 questions. Now it's 3. The concern about the increase in the hotel tax. Are you concerned in terms of going forward what your budget's going to look like? Should we be prepared for that in terms of, are you anticipating an overall decrease, or what areas would you be most concerned about?
Federal government changes that impact meetings and conferences and transient travel to our community. It's generating transient travel and meetings. Okay. That would be everything else. We feel like things have been stable. Room rate, like I mentioned, is going to kind of level off. Mm-hmm. But that would be our biggest concern.
Okay, thank you. So I think it's important for you to just keep in touch with us, and so we don't have surprises during the budget, because we're concerned about a lot of those things too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great questions, especially keeping an eye on the workforce working in restaurants, in hotels, janitors. You're going to see an impact, guaranteed, sadly. Councilmember Sayles.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Groff, for being here, and everyone else that contributed to this presentation. Just following up on Councilmember Balcombe's question regarding the decline. Are we doing anything to mitigate this decline? Are we thinking of unique ways to attract new business to our hotel spaces?
So a couple comments. You know, when we see declines in one market segment, we try and ramp up and try and maybe get more leisure travel here, right, which is Thursday through Sunday leisure transient travel. But I would also hope that our Meet in Maryland initiative might help some of this, because it's additional money, it's additional time in the marketplace that can attract more meetings in a different market segment.
Okay. And then I was looking at the trade shows, the conferences and trade shows that you all attend. Have we considered, I saw, you know, none of them were like local. Have we put together a sponsor package or a hosting package to attract some of these trade shows to come to Montgomery County, to be hosted in our hotels in Montgomery County?
So most of the trade shows we attend are out of market, because we're meeting professionals that are going to bring visitors here versus our own residents attending conferences. There can be a balance where you have a conference that is generated locally, but you have out-of-town visitors, but also local business people that attend. Mm-hmm. So anything we can do that attracts meetings from outside the area are going to benefit and have a greater economic impact.
So how are we packaging our hotels as premier conference venues?
So we have collateral materials that we use. We have a trade show booth that Lee takes with him when he's traveling. We are collecting leads when we're at trade shows that Lee comes back and has to follow up on. Sometimes they're really hot leads and immediate needs for meeting space. Sometimes, you have to nurture them and prospect through them for 6 months to a year. Sometimes, council member, we won't see a booking from a trade show until a year later. So it's just a matter of continuing to be out and prospecting, being in the marketplace.
Thank you. A question about the sponsorships. Which of the proposed strategies does Visit Montgomery believe would have the most significant immediate return on investment? From the sponsorships, the tours, influencer programs, enhanced advertising. Have we evaluated each of those?
All of them.
Okay. All right. And then the visitor center, can you speak a bit more about the vision for the visitor center?
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. So 20 years ago, Montgomery County had a welcome or visitor center in Germantown at the Up County Regional Services Center. But as time went on, the car traveler had a phone. So the car traveler was using the phone and not necessarily stopping at a welcome center or a visitor center. So we walked away from that space, and you don't see as many visitor centers in destinations as you did in the past. One trend we have noticed are mobile visitor centers, where you can take the mobile center and use it in your own local community at large events or at parks. So you can engage with residents to talk to them about everything we have to offer here, but you can also take that vehicle into another market and set up shop and talk about your jurisdiction and your destination to visitors from outside of the area. That's why it's been on a wish list.
Okay, because I've been to the Frederick Visitor Center, and it's a really nice destination to see all of the different touring guides. It has a video about, the town of Frederick. So I know we're thinking about a mobile unit, but, in the meantime, if we want to have like a pilot and see how we can ramp up for a mobile unit and make that added investment based on the visitation, it might be helpful to think about that in the meantime.
We're definitely up for exploring that further.
All right. Okay. I yield. Thank you.
Great questions. Two things very quickly before I pass the mic to Councilmember Glass. I use the train, Amtrak, a lot to travel across the U.S., and it bothers me that every time you put Washington, D.C. as a destination, it's just Washington, D.C. Have you guys approached them to highlight things that we have in Montgomery County as a way to catch people's eyes that have, people that come to the nation's capital, not just to see the White House, but also other great things, the surrounding areas, yeah.
So we work with our partners. My counterpart is Destination DC, and we do work with them as best we can. We advertise in their publications. You'll see our advertising usually centered around other Maryland destinations when we, collaborate and advertise together. But in the messaging, Letitia always has the job of trying to delicately communicate that we are outside of Washington, D.C. without saying Washington, D.C., but it really is a hook for us. So sometimes we'll say D.C.'s neighbor, the nation's capital neighbor, but we really, as a destination, still have to align and market ourselves as being part of the capital region in Washington, D.C.
What I mean is that when you go to the website for Amtrak and you click, I want to be in D.C. for 3 days, it would be awesome if you have, in one of the things that you can do in 3 days, it could be stop by downtown Silver Spring, Bethesda, or check out the Black Rock for a show, things like that. But anyway, I had to share that.
I agree.
Councilmember Glass.
That's the tricky part about where we live, right? Yes. And Ms. Groff, my first question was gonna be, what is the elevator pitch when we go, across the country and sell ourselves? And you alluded to it, but what is it succinctly?
I should bring Lee to do that pitch up.
Oh, he's like, no.
No. Well, you alluded to it,
yeah,
right?
So our location next to Washington, D.C., of course. But more importantly, we have fabulous hotels, great meeting space, wonderful restaurants. One of our biggest pitches is, you can be in an urban environment and in 15 minutes be in the rural area of the county. So you have this nice blend for your visitors, especially at groups. Like groups can be at a meeting, but you can also take them to wonderful places in the rural area of the county for a happy hour or a seated dinner, because we have a lot of options, as you know, in the rural area of the county for that too. But our salesman here does a great job. I get to travel with him twice a year, and I always come back and I say how lucky we are, because the passion he feels for the community comes through in his sales.
Lee, you're on.
No pressure. No pressure. Thank you. We really lean into the diversity of Montgomery County. So, we have 4 of the top 10 most diverse communities in the United States. So we lean into the diversity of our population, the diversity of our culinary experiences, the diversity of what you can experience in Montgomery County. So being next door to Washington, D.C., you're going to have all of those fabulous urban experiences. But not too far, you're going to experience our agricultural area, our farms, our wineries, our breweries. So again, diversity of experiences. So that's really what we lean into. And come to Montgomery County, hold your meeting here, have, all of these wonderful different experiences. And if you want to go see the monuments, go ahead. But maybe you'll want to come back another time, because we have so much in Montgomery County that you don't need to leave.
You're hired. That's great.
I also want to add that the Maryland Soccerplex is busy every weekend. They are, as you know, that's why we have a sports tourism task force, because they are maxed out. So when I was traveling with my son for soccer, we never had time to experience the community. So the first impression we all give to these visitors is the best impression for them to come back with their families. Right. And so we're lucky and fortunate that we have this fabulous facility that's bringing visitors. We just have to do a really good job of welcoming them to the community, and then they can provide word of mouth advertising.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Lee, great job. And following up on that, I have a question about all the conferences that you do attend, right? Because according to your own notes, that you attend 10 conferences, you want to attend 28 more, and now there's this formal or informal consortium with Team Maryland, which I think is a great idea. How do you pick which conferences you go to? No, you were on. One more time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. There we go. All right. That's a great question. Thank you. So we look at the different trade shows and conferences that are going to be beneficial to the market segments that we have identified that will give us the largest growth opportunity in the county. We do quite a bit of trade shows in the tour and travel space, both for student tours and adult tours. That's one of our largest market segments, especially on the student side, because every 8th grader has to come to Washington, D.C.
6th grade, but yes, I get it.
That is also the market segment that you really have to maintain a close relationship with those tour operators. It really is all about relationships and ultimately return on relationship. We really feel that the biggest growth right now is in the association market. Mm-hmm. And those are the trade shows that we have not done as many in because of budget constraints. Those are really the ones where we think we have the largest opportunity to grow our market share. So that's we look at these on an annual basis and determine which are the best ones that will give us to our goal of what our ending strategy is for the end of the year.
Very helpful, and so that leads me to my next question about the data sources and some of the online portals that you all utilize, from Wright to Noland Group and then some of the other ones, are those aggregators that help figure this out, or what is the utility of those? Because I know they're not cheap, right?
They're not. They are a big investment, and we've, made that investment over the last couple of years because we believe it's really valuable. RIPE is the newest source for us. We will monitor this and decide what we're going to do at the end of a year. The Visitor Insights slide you see, that Symphony, that is an aggregator. So that particular source will aggregate data that is available in the marketplace, and also geofences areas of the county so we can see growth or decline in visitation. There are about 40 areas that are geofenced within Montgomery County. And then for Lee, and return on investment in trade shows, council member, if we haven't booked a piece of business after a year of attending a trade show, and typically the rule of thumb is 2 years of attending, then it gets pulled from our schedule.
Good to know, going back to that return on investment aspect. I could go on and on because I do have more questions. I realize we do have two more topics we want to talk about, and I appreciate the chair for putting this on the agenda so that we could have more regular conversation. But I asked, last question was budget related as it relates to online platforms and the investments there. Going back to the question, I think it was Councilmember Balcombe asked about the OMB projections, right? And the OMB projection projects a 4.3% decline in hotel motel tax revenue in FY 26 in the upcoming year, and you had said that numbers were flat at 1% right now. And then I think in Councilmember Sayles' follow-up question, the expected shortfall or decline is largely, we expect, because of the changes in the federal government, right? Is that what your expectation is?
Yes.
Okay. So
there are, I didn't mean to interrupt. There are demand generators that can offset some of that are one-time events, like World Pride have a huge impact, will have a huge impact on our community. That is kind of unexpected revenue, so we're excited about that. There's some golf events coming up in Montgomery County, but again, the hotel rate is probably going to remain pretty flat, and that may be that and the changes at the federal level may be what is going to create the downturn.
Got it. And I raise that because just being mindful as the county executive is finalizing the budget due in 6 weeks' time, that some of the new realities and the new norms either have to be offset somehow or accepted, right? And those are the questions that we'll ultimately have to ask. And whether or not the downturn in some of these hotel motel tax revenue are external factors that we cannot change, at least for the next 4 years or beyond. And we have to figure out how to mitigate that. And so I just want to put that out there as you all are dealing with the budget, and eventually as we get that budget in due time. But you got to the last point I wanted to close on, and it's World Pride, which is supposed to draw 4 to 5 million people to the district. And I am absolutely hoping that some of that spills over Western Avenue and Eastern Avenue and up the Red Line into Montgomery County. And one of the pitches that I did not hear, we got diversity, we got the food, we got all of this stuff. Is our price point here easier for a tourist who might not want to pay big bucks for hotels down in D.C.?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And that was very evident in just what happened last week. Last Monday, when hotels in D.C. were selling rooms for $1,000 plus per night. And our hotels closest to D.C., which actually did very well last week, were in the $300 to $400 range. So we are very positioned very nicely to increase that due to rate.
Okay. Not sure how I feel about the inaugural bump, but we got one nonetheless. World Pride, let's promote it. I've been talking to folks in D.C., letting them know that this is a regional event, and we're here to do our part. So let's keep moving forward. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
One more thing, Councilmember Sayles.
Yes, I was hoping I would hear the tagline. I know that we trademarked Maryland's cultural capital I don't know if we're working that into our pitch that we are using to attract and brand and really set Montgomery County apart. And so I would love to hear more emphasis on that branding and to see more advertisements about Maryland's cultural capital, what we're doing, and how we're building upon that trademark.
You will see it in our advertising. You'll see it on our website. Keep in mind that a lot of the advertising is out of market. So if you pick up a Southern Living magazine, you won't see our ad here, but if you live in Pennsylvania, you will see the ad. So, but we do have samples of ads we can show you, but we absolutely do place that in our collateral materials, our website, and our print and digital advertising messaging.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I'm just, as elected officials who do our own marketing, if we're not tired of saying it, we're not saying it enough. And so just wanted to see how you're pitching us outside of here.
Thank you.
Great point. With that, thank you so much for all your work and everything that you do in Montgomery County. Look forward to having more information that we can all spread out and inform folks. With that, my friends, we're going to have our second panel, WorkSource Montgomery. Mr. Anthony Featherstone and his team can come up. And I'm going to turn it to Mr. Ali so he can kick us off. Thank you.
Thank you. Just while everyone gets settled, I'll just walk through the architecture of this packet because Mr. Featherstone has a very detailed presentation to go through with slides. WorkSource Montgomery is the county's designated workforce development corporation that implements WIOA, which is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, and supports workforce development initiatives throughout the county. Just to review FY25 briefly, the council approved $2.274 million, including $199,000 for programming at the correctional facility. There was technical detail there that you needed to fill the gap, and so you did. How the council did not ultimately approve funding for the coding program and $10,000 for Summer Rise. In terms of their accomplishments to date, Mr. Featherstone will go over it, but there is a summary of that in the packet. They also provide an update on the career advising program through Q3 2024, American Job Center Employment Services, and Skill Up Montgomery as well. They also provide an update on Launch Your Future employment program, Community Workforce Network, the dual track reentry, as well. In terms of that increasing level of service discussion that will be a theme across all of the budget discussions, they primarily suggest ways to enhance existing services as opposed to add new services. And two places where they recommend that could go are sector connectors and just helping to reduce the wait list for the WIOA training, as well as growing the business grant solutions, specifically GROW and IWT. And then also we asked them to maybe provide a little bit of discussion on how the changes in the administration will impact labor policy generally, whether that's through changes that in terms of, to federal employment, but also to immigration and the downstream effects that'll have. And of course, they're subject matter experts and can get into the weeds. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Featherstone, and we have some slides.
All right. Good morning to the committee, and always good to be with you. And we thank you for your support of workforce development and WorkSource Montgomery. As mentioned, I'm Anthony Featherstone, Executive Director for WorkSource Montgomery and our local Workforce Development Board. Before I get into it, you're going to hear "we" a lot in my presentation, and so I just want to make sure I define it clearly. "We" does include WorkSource Montgomery, but it includes a plethora of partners that we work with to make sure we have a strong public workforce system, from the Maryland Department of Labor, Health and Human Services here in Montgomery County, all the way to Interfaith Works and other community partners. So I wanted to make sure I said that at the beginning. As I talk to you about our work through FY25, I'm going to speak about it through the lens of our 6 priorities. And so our first priority is workforce system building. Second priority is community engagement. Third priority is business engagement. Fourth priority is talent pipelines. Our fifth priority is youth career education. And then last but certainly not least, measurable impact with the work that we do. And so Before I get into our priorities and our work, I wanted to give a couple high-level data points that you probably are very familiar with, and this is some trend data regarding our labor force, employment and unemployment statistics dating back from January 20 all the way through the most recent report in November of 2024. 3.1% unemployment rate. But one piece of data that we look at heavily as a workforce board are our employment numbers. And so as of November of 2024, we were at 536,000 individuals employed in Montgomery County, but that's still about 27,000 short of where we were in January of 2020. So from a high level standpoint, we want to try to get back to where we were pre-pandemic, and we see that as a huge economic opportunity to work with the 16,000 unemployed residents that are looking to get back in the workforce. And as you know, there are discouraged workers out there and workers or residents that are not counted in the labor force as well. And so we want to make sure we connect with them, figure out where they are today, what supports that they need from WorkSource and our partners, and help them get into the labor force. And so that's one data point from a high level that we track that helps us figure out if we're moving the needle a bit from a workforce standpoint. Next slide. ALICE stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. And in short, this is data that's released by the United Way, and here in this region, the United Way National Capital Area. And so essentially what ALICE is households in the county that are living right around the federal poverty line. And so there's not a lot of wiggle room in household budgets, and unexpected expenses can drive your household into a deficit. I want to note a few things from the most recent ALICE report. It's lagging a bit, so you're not seeing data from 2024. But the most recent report for 2024 that includes 2022 data showed that our ALICE plus poverty population increased from 32% to 37%. And that's 30% ALICE, and that's 7% that are in poverty. And so this is embedded in all the work that we do. We can help somebody find employment. We can check that box, but we want to make sure that there are wages and employment and pathways that lead to individuals getting out of the ALICE population. A couple other things to note on the chart to the left, that the highest ALICE population when it comes to household type is within our households of 65 and over. And so a lot of our aging residents are experiencing tight household budgets, so that's something that we're mindful of as we look at older worker programs and so forth. The chart to the right will show that ALICE doesn't discriminate across any race or demographic, but Hispanic and Black households have a higher ALICE and poverty rate than any other demographic within the county. And so as we talk about our work, this is at the forefront. These are extra boxes that we've added to make sure that we can move the needle. And so what we want to see, obviously, is we want to see the ALICE population, the poverty population decrease as we work with all of our partners. Next slide. So our first priority, workforce system building, we have a formula, and it includes relationship building, asset mapping, capacity building, connective technology, and universal reporting. And so relationship building entails a lot, but it's really just being present. Whether we are showing up at community events, having meetings with partners, establishing initiatives with partners, or one of our biggest, I think, things is offering our American Job Center up as a community space where we do meetings and events with all types of organizations at no cost, where they can hold their events at our space, and that increases awareness of workforce services offered through the American Job Center. Community asset mapping, we now have over 140 organizations that are on our community asset mapping, included in our community workforce network. Capacity building, as we've asset mapped the system, we've seen gaps in the system, and we're really proud that since FY23 we've invested over $5 million of our public and private funding into community programs outside of the direct services that WorkSource Montgomery offers. Connective technology, over 140 organizations can connect and continue to connect effectively based on an individual or staff person. And so we have a CWN, Community Workforce Network Partner Portal, where we have over 50 organizations right now working in the portal, sharing information, providing referrals, integrating case management and services. And so we can decrease the confusion and the runaround as we work with our residents who are in need of workforce services. And then universal reporting. Ideally one day I want to, be able to stand here and give universal data on all 140 organizations so you can see the true impact of workforce services on our county. And so we're working on marching towards that end. Right now we have over 25 organizations that are working together and sharing data on their programs so that we can aggregate it and disaggregate it to see the impact of those services through those organizations. Next slide. Community engagement. This is another thing that we're excited about and has been really effective. Are our advisory committees. And so over the last few years, we've developed several advisory committees, our Community Impact Advisory Committee, our Reentry Advisory Committee, we have industry committees and so forth. And so these committees advise us, and they tell us what they feel about services and upcoming programs that are intended to impact positively certain communities. Sometimes we get great feedback on what we're doing. Sometimes we get feedback that's on the other end, but that feedback's all helpful so that we can make sure we're being as effective as we can in trying to serve our communities in need. Accessibility, hundreds of languages spoken in the homes of Montgomery County residents, and so no way we can, as diverse as our staff is, no way we can match the diversity of the languages spoken in this county. So all of our staff have translation tools so that they can minimize language diversity and language barriers as we are in the community connecting with residents. And last but not least, our mobile services. I'm sure all of you at this point have seen our mobile job center in the community. It's been a tremendous tool when it comes to creating a level of awareness and pipelines to workforce services since we deployed it. I think it was in late 2022. Next slide. Business and engagement, a couple, numbers I'll pull out. This year so far through December, we've worked with 636 businesses and provided over 3,000 business services. And so there's a level of a replication and duplication, however you want to put it, with the businesses that we work with. And so we want to see repeat customers when it comes to our businesses. And I couldn't be a workforce board director and stand here and not give you placement numbers. And so through December 2024, we've placed 2,186 residents in employment with our local businesses. And so we talk kind of in fancy terms when it comes to workforce, but ultimately when individuals come to us, usually their first ask is, I want a job. And when businesses come to us, they want an employee to fill an opening. And so we're proud of that number as well. And you'll see below that the services that we offer, from general services to accessing our state job board where they can connect with residents and post jobs, all the way down to subsidy grants to help out in the employee life cycle, whether you're hiring or whether you're upskilling an incumbent employee who's been on your roles for some time. Next slide. Talent pipelines. After we have built systems, after we understand the community, after we have engaged with businesses, now what are we doing about it to ensure that our residents have access to career pathways? And so these are just three of many buckets or initiatives that we have going on in our sector: connectors, in IT, hospitality, life sciences, transportation, healthcare, and I probably missed one, but I'll leave it there. I know you can read it. But these are our programs that provide residents with opportunities to connect to a training provider, connect to a credential, and connect directly to employment in one of these industries. Skill Up Montgomery is our virtual career training platform. That's the platform that can be utilized by any Montgomery County resident. To date, we have 767 users. We've had over 11,000 courses launched and 2,000 courses completed. And so we're proud that that's a good and widely utilized community resource and tool for our residents. And last but not least, our community workforce network, as I mentioned before. WorkSource Montgomery is not is not the single source workforce provider in the county. There are many great workforce organizations throughout the county, and so we partner today with over 30 organizations where we support cohorts and so forth. Council member Fani-González, I know you've been to many graduations that we've had. El Poder de Ser Mujer, who does outstanding culinary and entrepreneurial skills cohorts. We've been to grand openings for students who've graduated and opened brick and mortar businesses, and even more who've started, other businesses and so forth as a result of that training. And so we want to be a part of the expansion and fidelity or sustainability of those programs offered by community providers. Youth career education. So this is really, really exciting for us. And so we have our Montgomery County Career Advising Program, a partnership authorized by the Blueprint for Maryland's Future between MCPS, Montgomery College, WorkSource Montgomery, and Universities of Shady Grove as a partner in our program locally here as well. And so we are in our second school year or second year of operation, really about 1.5 years through. We started halfway through last school year, and a lot of things to be proud of for all of those organizations. We are in all of the middle, high schools and specialty programs. We don't like to use fully staffed. My colleague behind me is probably cringing when I say fully staffed, but we are fully staffed, and all of our staff are registered apprentices. The first apprenticeship of its kind in the nation, registered with the United States Department of Labor and Maryland Department of Labor. We wanted to make sure that our staff are going into the schools and they are fully equipped with the skills and abilities to serve our students in partnership with MCPS, how we all expect them to serve them. So we're really proud of that. To date, we've worked with over 25,000 students, which is probably about a third of the total population that we are working towards serving. But we're proud that we're at 25,000 and counting through a year and a half. And one thing that's really unique about our program here that you may not see throughout the state is our teacher engagement aspect. We couldn't do this as a point in time program. There are too many students to meet with them individually and give 2 minutes and call it career coaching. And so we're creating through this partnership more career curious atmospheres within our school system, and a part of that is educators signing up to be teacher champions to learn the career management theory that we're deploying throughout the school system and to embed it in their core curriculum within their classrooms. And so it's happening with career coaches, it's happening with teachers, it's happening in the community, because we are spreading the word of, RISEC, which is our career management language that we use for this program with our community partners. And so it's creating a more career curious environment, as I mentioned. Then I think last but not least, we have an industry engagement team that's making sure that once young folks identify their strengths, interests, work values, identify their career theme, they can connect with real career professionals. So they can turn the theoretical careers or concepts into something that's real. And so we're really proud of this program and where we are to date. Next slide. Let's talk about some outcomes from the Youth Career Education Program. As I mentioned, we use the RISEC themes, which is the most widely accepted career management theory in the U.S., also used by the U.S. Department of Labor. There's 6 themes: realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, or conventional. And this is the data for those young folks that we've connected with. And everybody has leading themes, and you have up to three themes. And so these won't add up to 100% because they're 3 themes, and they'll show up multiple times. But you'll see a fairly equal distribution amongst all of the career management themes. Which is good because it's expected, because we're a diverse county and we didn't expect that the themes will be any different. And this is our future workforce. And so all of these themes relate to various industries that drive our local economy. And so our job now is to make sure that the young people can continue to identify their themes, continue to identify career experiential opportunities and activities, connect with professionals, and know that there are real opportunities here in Montgomery County and in the region once they finish at MCPS and go on to their other educational or employment endeavors. And so this is really powerful information, we think, from an economic development standpoint and a workforce talent pipeline standpoint. Last but not least, data, measurable impact. After we've done all of these things, how are we measuring the impact and determine if we're being effective. And so these are just a few data points of many that we track. But we're proud that with our federal measures, we exceeded or passed 17 of 18. We did fail one. We were right on the brink of passing, and so it's not a huge margin. There's some things that we tweaked and improved, and we'll see 18 passed or exceeded measures in the future. Bilal mentioned our WIOA program, Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, our federal program, and so we serve the most participants throughout the state. We also have very good performance measures, as you see, as one of the large workforce areas throughout the state, and so there's a level of quantity and quality. And then, although we're the fourth largest workforce board in terms of funding, we serve the second most residents throughout the state, and you'll see 11 barrier codes represented, and that's important to us because there's a thing called creaming, where you don't work with residents with the highest level of barriers, and so we make sure that we're intentional about our outreach methods and the barriers that folks in Montgomery County have, that we want to connect with them on so that we can mitigate them and help them get along their career pathway. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you go back one more time? Thank you. The 2,000 plus placements through December 31st, you'll see a breakdown on the right of where those placements are. Probably no surprise, a lot of the placements are in the professional, scientific, and technical services. In terms of our target industries, that will be the IT and biotechnology sectors. Next slide. Lastly, we are in the midst of developing our next workforce plan for Montgomery County, the 25 through 28 plan. We've had 4 sessions so far. Thank you, Councilmember Balcombe. I know you joined the last session. And we've met with businesses, we've met with chamber leaders, we've met with community organizations, we've had meetings with board members, we've had meetings with residents. And so that plan will be published in July of 2025, but it will go public in early February for comments from the general public or whomever wants to weigh in on that plan. And so that's coming, and I wanted to make sure we noted that in our presentation. And with that, I will stop or pause and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Featherspoon. I know as a witness that you guys, WorkSource Montgomery, you guys do amazing work. And I hear it from people who participate in your programs, and they speak highly of you. And this is one of the reasons why Montgomery County is such a great destination, not just to visit, but to live in here. So thank you for that. I do want to highlight one thing. I love your work on youth career education. I remember last year we had a session with MCPS and you guys when we talked about the importance of making sure students are career ready, and we have a strong path from high school graduation to actually have a job. Not every single person wants to go to college, and that's okay. I had 2 brothers, none of them went to college, just me. And they're making more money than each one of us. Let me just say that to you. So it's and I do a lot of work and events with middle and high school students. And the last event that I had about 2 weeks ago, I had about 100 students. And I always asked, what's in your mind? What kind of thing would you love me to host you on? And almost everybody said that they were very interested in doing something related about opening a business, how to open a business in Montgomery County. These are middle school kids, middle school and high school, but mostly middle school kids. So if you're planning by any chance to have some type of one-day training where kids can get SSL hours, because that's a big hook, to tell kids how to get into this path, I think will be very powerful. We can partner, and but I just wanted to share because I thought it was really, really good to hear kids talking about their aspirations of opening their own business as they grow up. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic to Councilmember Sayles.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Featherstone, for the very thorough presentation. Just a few questions about some of the programs. The Montgomery County Career Advising Program, MOCO-CAP. I know that there was a student survey, 25,000 students responded, Any specific trends or outcomes that will be incorporated into this marketing plan or this work plan for 2025 that you want to share?
Yep, I'm going to ask my colleague, John Hattery. He's our Deputy Director of Career Education Services. He oversees the Montgomery County Career Advising Program to speak to that.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Since we deployed services in January 8th of last year, we've had almost 49,000 surveys returned. Embedded in those surveys is feedback from students regarding things like next steps. My next steps in my career are more clear as a result of this interaction. We get about a 4.8 out of 5 on that. Excuse me, 4.2 out of 5 on that. In addition, you saw the RISEC data where people were able to name and claim. That data, at each individual survey, the plan is, and sometimes we run into technical difficulties, but our surveys are set up in such a way that each one of those surveys is turned into a PDF form that is then returned to the coach at the individual school so they can identify young people for the next steps. So if we're going to have a conversation about starting a business, which is a very high enterprising theme, if we're going to have a conversation about IT or some other type of Meta-Pro around life sciences or something else, our coaches now have hard data that they can go and find the right students to make sure that they're matching the right students to the right activity. As it relates to other outcomes, we have about a 30, what we've tracked between between our self-reported numbers, our coaches telling us how many people that they meet with approximately. They don't count, but they keep track by class rosters and other methods. We have about a 38% return rate from survey versus our self-reported numbers. That's been consistent since last year. And so we're very comfortable with the number of young people that we're able to touch in a number of different ways.
All right. Okay. But no recurring trends of programs they want to see expanded or more space or more of this in the coaching sessions or less of that?
I think if we ask the question individually, every single one of them would like to go on more field trips. And these are things that we are indeed providing. Particularly our partners at MCPS are giving every single ninth grader the opportunity for an in-person college visit.
Oh, good.
So that's, MCPS and WorkSource Montgomery are very closely aligned and partnered in this area. And that particular initiative is largely driven by MCPS, supported by us. Last year, I think they went to about 30 local colleges within the 50-mile radius. Okay. About 2,900 young people went to in-person visits, and then there were virtual visits for folks who weren't able to make the trip or whatever. Our sense is so far, we've just started in the fall. The balance of this, the bulk of this occurs during the spring, but our sense is that there's been a decided uptick in young people wanting to participate in this. All career education opportunities are welcomed by the young people. The Meta-Pros, where we bring current professionals in to have contact with folks. They do this work to figure out their strengths, interests, and values. They claim their RISEC themes. They come up with theories about their best possible future self, and then we give them the opportunity to test those theories by having conversations with current professionals. Last week, Scott McFarland, the TV anchor, was in Poolsville. We've had anesthesiologists last week. The kids have decided that the anesthesiologists are the coolest doctors so far that they've met. I don't know why that is, but that just seems to be a thing. And so the other big event that we're planning for the spring is our WOW event, where we're planning to bring, as a pilot, 10 middle schools located around the Rockville Montgomery College campus to engage in a large, massive occupational exploration event we're calling World of Work. So we're in the process of gathering our businesses, and those businesses are in the process of building experiences, hand-on experiences for the young people so they can come in and and really get a picture on if this theory they have about their best future selves really fits what they see in the front of their face.
Thank you. I'd love to hear more about that WOW event. And one other question, how does the Maryland Apprenticeship Designation for career coaches enhance their training and effectiveness?
We knew in the program design phase that we were building something that was ambitious as the blueprint law was in itself.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity for system change. And this is Montgomery County. We need to make sure that we're effective. This program will be successful or not successful, is successful, I submit, because of the great work that the career coaches are doing. Mm-hmm. Part of that is the ability to train them effectively. Apprenticeship is an age-old training model. It's used not only in traditional ways like in the carpentry trade and others, but U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Apprenticeship has expanded the apprenticeable occupation significantly to now include career coaching. Mm-hmm. We knew that we wanted our coaches to be well versed in the theory of the RISEC. Mm-hmm. That's included in the related training. We knew that because we were guests in Montgomery County Public School spaces, we needed to be very, very well versed about what that was like, what the rules are, how operations occur. And then we also needed to make sure that we had a competency, some kind of way to judge the competency. So there's 3 legs on our apprenticeship stool. It's a competency-based program, the vision to take about a year. The net result is that our coaches are more well-prepared. They understand operations in their schools. They understand the theory behind the RISEC, John Holloway's code. And they've also had the opportunity to demonstrate their competency to the satisfaction of their managers and, in some cases, partners. One of the ways that a program is going to evolve is that all apprenticeship programs connect journey level, as they call it in the U.S. Department of Labor, journey level workers to people who are in the midst of their training. Because we just graduated our first 17, we've had 17 people complete the program to date. Okay. Now we're going to be designing that piece where existing journey level workers, we call them certified career practitioners, are then going to support the apprentices as they come through the system. So we're very excited about the apprenticeship. We think it's been a big piece of our success in that we can look parents, teachers, stakeholders, and elected officials in the eye and say, we have the best trained career coaches in the system.
Good. All right. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Great. Very comprehensive. Thank you. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the team for the presentation. I want to start with I was looking at the most popular topics and most popular courses for the MocoCap YouTube channel, and things that you would expect, but particularly I want to highlight the most popular course, the second most popular course, which is Business Etiquette to Increase Professionalism. And I think so much of this work are teaching the hard skills, but also the soft skills, and that's clearly what that class is all about. Because we can teach the nuts and bolts of a particular job or a sector, but how to interview, how to interact with colleagues, how to interact with clients is incredibly important. It's sometimes non-tangible, and I'm glad to see that that people are taking notice and they're watching this. So good on you and good on them. Much like with the other conversation, I want to focus a lot on the budget that you currently have and the one that's in formation. Much of the staff notes, and want to thank Mr. Ali for breaking some of this down. There is an over-reliance on the federal government, and we know that things are changing at a rapid clip. And in particular, with the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, WIOA, do you call it WIOA? Yes. Yeah. Particularly with WIOA, which was not reauthorized last year as part of the continuing resolution, and so parts of that remain a question mark. And I see that In FY25, there is expected to be a $1.2 million reduction as well. So without me delineating all the different budgetary items, where are you thinking the organization needs to go? What kind of help, what kind of innovation, what kind of programs do we need to have tough conversations about, given the changing federal landscape, which supports a lot of the work that you're doing?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So in FY25, we did receive that 22% reduction. Right now, we know that the United States Department of Labor has released tentative numbers for this upcoming year, FY26, and it looks like the state of Maryland will receive a 7% decrease, and so we can expect our decrease to be along the same trajectory as the states, and so that is big for us, because on top of a 22% decrease, it makes it tougher to sustain certain programs. And so the first thing I will mention is that we have been really aggressive when it comes to development of funds outside of our core funding source, the WIOA legislation. And so we worked with Montgomery County on some grants. We've worked with the Department of Labor. We are starting to see private dollars come in and support from foundations who are interested in the programs that we've started. We have a theme of funding programs, that programming funds. And I think what ARPA did was it allowed us to prove concepts and provide good data to potential funders for reentry and for business grants and so forth, so that we can go and put solid applications in front of folks. And so it won't match the gap of ARPA leaving and whatever the impending cut is from WIOA. And so we're going to have to make some decisions based on the final allocations for next year. But we are excited that we've gotten good news for other funding sources, for all the way from the federal government outside of U.S. Department of Labor all the way down to private foundations within the area.
That is good news. Diversification is clearly the direction that needs to be explored. So I'm glad you're already ahead of that. And taking a step back even further, the organization was years ago, as I understand it, created to be the vehicle for state and more importantly federal funding towards this effort. And so as the federal landscape changes, are there mandates that you expect to be changed? The goals, are they shifting in some way? Just trying to understand that with the reduced federal funding, is there reduced demand from them as well? Not that let me be clear, there's no reduced demand here, but trying to understand what their implications are.
So the requirements will be the exact same as you mentioned. The reauthorization of WIOA, a Stronger Workforce for America, didn't pass with the last Congress. And so although funding will decrease, we'll be able to maybe negotiate how many we can serve. We won't necessarily be able to negotiate what the level of quality needs to be in the rates that we need to hit in each one of our measures and so forth. And so we'll be smart in our negotiations as far as quantity and balancing the funding with being able to maintain adequate services. As you mentioned, the need isn't going down in Montgomery County. We looked at the ALIS data. You all are in the community. We're working with our partners, and a lot of them have wait lists, including WorkSource Montgomery, for folks to get into our program. And so those requirements won't change, but we may we're going to set ourselves up for success on a federal level by not over promising and saying we can serve the same amount of people we could serve when we had $3 million plus a few years ago. But our internal goals may be a little different. But we'll make sure that we negotiate in a smart way with the federal government or the state, so that our federal performance can be upkept. So I hope that answered your question.
It does. I mean, the bottom line is it's complicated and it's all a moving target right now. But I wish that the original continuing resolution passed, but House Republicans and the then incoming current president didn't want any of that. And so while we should have received funding and support for a stronger workforce for America, we're being left with a weaker workforce, particularly in our own community. And we need to figure this out. And I know that you're already in partnership and in conversation with our federal partners. Please keep us updated on whatever rules, regulations, and requirements might be changing, because as we start taking up the budget after the county executive releases his, we're going to have to navigate through this to make sure that we have the strongest workforce possible, and you're a central part to that. So thank you for today's presentation.
Thank you.
Councilmember Balcombe.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and for the packet. It was very comprehensive. And just to follow up on Councilmember Glass's questioning and concerns, we've seen this in our other departments where during COVID and post-COVID, we were able to provide significantly higher level of service for HHS, and now that the money's going away, we've had to grapple with how do we continue those services, because the need certainly isn't going away, and this is going to be the same issue. I would say the same thing that I said with Visit Montgomery is that please make sure that we're aware and not just at budget time of any of these changes that you think might impact service to our community, because we need to be prepared for that. So I appreciate that conversation that Councilmember Glass started. A couple issues for me in the packet. A couple things that just popped out, and then I have a couple more substantive questions. The Skill Up program. So the courses launched versus the courses completed. Is that a time difference, or is that just simply that people aren't completing the courses? That data really popped out at me.
I think it's both and unfortunately I can't give you the specific breakdown. So the timing piece is that there are people that are still in the courses actively training through them and will come to completion. And there's some that are just laying dormant and were pending and that were never completed. This is a completely self-paced learning tool that's available to every Montgomery County resident. We can have 1 million+ users in the system, and so it just really depends on that user, and we can see start, stop, and where they are in between. But it's tough to get information on why they didn't complete or so forth. But it is a mix of both.
Yeah, and I think that it's a really valuable tool. And if we can make it more effective and then more people are completing it, if you have the data, and I understand we just had a budget conversation, so that might not be the top of the list. So that was one point. And then the other, for me, the focus, if we look at the interaction with industry and from the sector connectors and looking at tailoring programs for specific industries and the grant programs, I think are really important to make sure that we can enhance those services. Can you just talk a little bit about your interface with industry and how we can improve that connection?
Sure. And so we have a lot of touch points with industry. I'll start with what's probably the majority is the tactical portion where we're helping them find workers to fill their positions. And so you'll probably see that we do lots of job fairs and so forth. And in between it, we do a lot of smaller hiring events and sending over referrals for specific opportunities. And so that's a big piece of the work that we do when it comes to engaging industry, is helping them find workers to fill their roles. We also have those strategic conversations on where the industry is going, what their needs are. Soft skills is always at the top of the list, and not necessarily intentional with the business etiquette, but it does align with what our businesses are telling us that they need, and it just so happens that our residents, as they're going into that self-paced system, are studying and upskilling in the areas that businesses are saying that they need those skills the most, those professional or soft skills. And so, from those conversations, certain initiatives arise. We've talked about the bio boot camp, which is turning into a bio pre-apprenticeship, possibly with Montgomery College and the bio master class at the BioHub Training Center. And so those are direct industry initiatives that feed directly into local employers, and then the industry advisory groups for 6 of our target industries to make sure, if you look at our sector connectors, that those jobs, that those skills, that those credentials make sense for their industries or for their companies, because those are the folks that are going to be hiring folks that come through our program. So we want to make sure that they're leading and telling us that if you are going to be an IT professional, that A+ is still a relevant credential, or if it's moved to something else. And so we take that advice from our businesses.
That's great. And I see that there's a significant wait list for the sector connectors. And so how is it, I don't want to say, is it just money? Because I mean, that's a big hurdle, but is there a way to make that process more effective, I wouldn't say effective, more efficient, to get more people through? Because when we look at how many people can get through in a given year, the wait list is I mean, that's years before somebody can get through a program.
Yeah, and so we do have a large wait list, and that's something that is a continuing conversation and one of those keep you up at night things. And I'll give you a little context to the wait list. We don't recruit at WorkSource. It's more of a kind of a public education thing with the mobile job center, community impact teams, and all of our staff members and partners. And so through that process over several years, the community as a whole is much more aware of our services, and so those referrals are coming in steadily. So to answer your question, there are ways to streamline the process, and so we're releasing internally some AI tools to help us steward folks along the process, whether it's going to a WSM program or a partner program, because every one of those individuals may not come to a WorkSource Montgomery operated program. They may go to Sunflower Bakery's culinary training program, and so we're deploying. We actually demoed the final product last week. We're going to be deploying over the next few months an AI tool that'll help us be a little more efficient. But money is a thing. We try to keep our ratios at a manageable rate, and that's a 1-to-75 ratio. And there's some science behind that ratio when you're working with individuals with barriers that are going to school, and making sure that there's a level of quality when it comes to case management and services. And so it's a balancing act of balancing, manageable caseload ratios, also getting, folks to their landing point when it comes to their service provider as quickly possible, but also not compromising quality, because when I was a case manager, our staff hate to hear me say this, I had 230 people on my caseload. Wasn't very effective and much outside of making sure administratively that we stayed above water. So we don't want to get to that point where we're managing 230 people on a caseload, because it's not possible to do a good job when it comes to building a relationship and really supporting someone throughout their journey. So we're implementing tech to help us get a little better, but it is a funding thing when it comes to having case managers to support residents, and also funding for training. We do provide $5,000 for training for residents who are eligible and get into the program. So that's also a budgetary concern as well.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your responses. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the team of WorkSource Montgomery. Keeping us proud. And I look forward to seeing you all during the budget season. And as it was mentioned before, please let us know if anything comes up that we should know right away, okay? So next, we're going to have our final item for the day, and that's with the Department of Permitting Services. If we can please have their team come up. And as folks settle down, Mr. Ali, can you please kick us off?
Sure thing. Thank you. So yes, this is the final follow-up for today. Department of Permitting Services, you know what they do. They review permits and plans for building and construction activity. They are an enterprise fund, and so the budget discussions were really focused on some more higher level issues like a large fund balance that was the result sort of COVID and increased activity and artificially low costs. And so there was some discussion about strategies to spending that down. The council specifically recommended that they invest in their IT upgrade, which they were planning to do, and also to identify other ways that they could spend it down. The other big discussion was the hiring of 2 positions within HHS and using their fund balance to fund those. That's really more of an HHS update, but I'll just let you know those 2 positions have been filled as of November 2024. With regards to the fund balance, they're currently estimating that in FY25 it'll end at $40.8 million, which is lower than last year. And I think that's based on some older data, so they may be able to update that figure. They have begun the process of undertaking that $3.5 million IT upgrade. A lot of it is moving the system to the cloud. There's some physical equipment upgrade involved in that as well, and then working with the contractor to maintain some of that. They're also talking about strategies where they might assist the Green Bank to do a technical assistance pilot, which would require some funding as well, and then also thinking about ways to support the implementation of Bill 724 and helping to support the approval of emergency action plans and safety plans for buildings in response to that bill. And you may want to ask for some more information about that and sort of what the projection is for working through that fund balance. And then they've also provided a summary of progress and accomplishments to date, and we have some slides for them to walk through. They can review the metrics that they regularly track, as well as other initiatives that they've implemented over the fiscal year so far.
Thank you so much. Director Sabakan, you can please kick us off.
Good morning, committee. I'll just preface by saying we'll get into the budget. Obviously, we meet this Friday with the county executive to review our proposed FY26. But I just wanted to flash back for the committee. And if you remember, I was just thinking about it earlier this morning, almost 2 years to the day, January 31st, 2023, my confirmation interview before you and your colleagues, where I kicked out all, this Latin proverbs, quote faci, benefac, and world-class permitting. And I hope you thought that I was serious, because I am, and we are. And so, obviously the way to attain that, a big part of that is having the resources available to make that happen, because you can tout and have all kind of aspirations, but if you don't have the resources, it's not going to materialize. So all of that's, is the journey. We're putting those pieces in places, from a budgetary standpoint, from an operational standpoint, to make these steady process improvements. So that's really what, this is all about. Like I said, the budget is a big piece of that. Our operational side, our technology. And so we've been doing the necessary things, to get to that point, that aspiration, to really make this a world-class operation that we know will happen. If you want to start out, with some of the slides. So a lot of what the focus is, our numbers, performance. You have to be able to focus on the performance, getting better, steadily getting better, and that's attention to the detail. Those metrics, establishing those metrics, I think was the start of us working along that journey, and we knew. Even prior to my arrival, one of the biggest concerns was, being able to perform timely reviews, as it has a huge impact on, the economy, and getting staff to understand the importance of that, not just wearing the regulatory hat, but understanding the timeliness and the, the efficiencies. And so honing in on those performance metrics was critical, and we've been steadily doing that. I think you'll see with our performance dashboard, that was a big piece, just internally and also from a transparency standpoint for our stakeholders, being able to see how we're, what our targets are with respect to review timeframes, our inspections from the various permit types. And so, that's been a main focus is, hitting those metrics. I'm not, as you see from some of the data, we still have a lot to go in terms of getting the numbers that we really want to be. I mean, you have to be, if we set 90%, benchmarks, then we need to be close to that or exceed. And, I think for the most part, we have been hitting those benchmarks, but, for various reasons, we have, not attained. And that's why we were focusing on what are the things necessary to get full attainment, because we know that is going to be critical along that journey. So again, the focus on those numbers for economic development standpoint, I think commercial is really our primary focus, but that doesn't exclude residential, because we know in a county such as Montgomery County, you have to have an efficient residential process, both through inspections, review, and so, and then our accomplishments. We'll take a quick look at the things that we've been doing, and again, that's we talk about this a lot in leadership, just kind of celebrating the wins. When I came on, what are the low-hanging fruits? What are the things that we can easily accomplish? The short-term goals versus the long-term. We'll get into that as we embark on our 5-year strategic plan. But it's important that we understand, what it is we're out to accomplish in terms of being that world-class permitting department. And those accomplishments, just understanding, I used to play baseball, so home runs are nice, but singles are also just as effective. You can be a winning team, just cranking out singles, and that's pretty much what we've been doing, as you'll see from the list. But going back to the numbers, if you go by the charts, we've been busy. We do roughly 150 inspections a year. We're still on pace. Those year-to-date numbers for FY25, the permit issuances pretty much on track. You look at the businesses, the licenses, that's a little misleading because, we're doing more, but that's probably because of the cycle, the renewal cycle, with things were due this year as opposed to the previous year. The request for information, service requests, pretty much on par. And the reviews, we do a plethora of reviews each year from all disciplines. So everything is steady by the numbers, but it's again, points to how quickly we're doing those reviews. That's the challenge, and making sure that we have the resources. And I'll touch, really, when it comes to the FY26 proposed, again, we're going before CE on Friday. We've essentially asked for 3 new FTEs, enhancement requests. It was a kind of sensitive, in this climate, with the economy, a lot of departments are scaling back, doing more with less. And so even though we're an enterprise fund, we still wanted to be careful when it comes to enhancement requests. And so what we really looked at, how can we improve? Again, everything points back to how can we make the permitting process better. And we looked at 3 areas, 3 positions in its entirety. One was in our community engagement and outreach. We have one PIO who handles pretty much all the communication, does a yeoman's job with that, but it's no question she needs help. And so what we proposed was an assistant to our PIO so that we can really hit all of our outreach events and things of that sort to really get the word out for DPS and do that community engagement that we envision. The second enhancement request was a review position in electrical. We feel like electrical is an area where we want to make sure that we're performing timely reviews, and that was an essential area for reviews. And then the third was a program manager in our commercial division. So those were just three enhancement requests for FTEs. And then the other enhancement request was, we mentioned on the technology side, the $3.5 million for our systems and equipment for technology. So we've been working very closely with OMB, and again, we'll sort that out with the county executive later this week. Next slide. But again, you know, the focus is again on our numbers. Are we making the progress necessary? And you'll see, you kind of break down the areas from the review process, which of course is an essential function for permit review. Screening, obviously that's an intake, that's the first step in the process. So you have target goals of screening permit applications when they come through, and you see we're at a clip of 78%. Anytime you see 78, like I was alluding to, we want to be at least in the 90s or better. And we're working very diligently to make sure that we up that metric. And then on the initial reviews, again, this is new construction. So all the new projects, development projects that come in, how quickly are we getting to that? Because it's essential that we move as expeditiously as we can in terms of processing. As you can see, the resubmissions, we are actually performing quite well. You see the 100%, and that's obviously a different time frame, but we seem to be doing quite well in terms of our resubmissions across the board. The same thing on our alterations for those of the scopes that involve renovations. And so, again, focusing on those numbers, knowing where we need to improve, clearly from the FY25 numbers, the initial reviews on the alterations, we need to step that area up. And we also kind of highlighted our restaurants, which we know we've been focusing on quite a bit. And again, the initial reviews on our restaurants, I don't believe we've received the same level of restaurant permits as previous years. They have gone down, I believe, somewhat, but we want to make sure that we get those restaurant reviews out as quickly as possible, because we realize the impacts with those tremendously. So that is a focus, and I'll add also that we do have a void in our construction division area through retirement. So it's essential that we get a true leader that will come in and help us in that commercial division area, and we feel confident that over the next few months we will get that individual. Next slide. And again, you see, again, focusing on the data, our residential review, making sure the new construction, pretty much consistent with with hitting those benchmarks. Again, the resubmissions, that's an area where we need to focus on getting that done more swiftly, and intake on our additions and alterations. So we have to kind of figure out why those percentages are adding up like that, but definitely you're going to see steady increases in those, because it all contributes to timeliness of our reviews. Next slide. All right, so again, everything that we've been doing, again, is all pointing to how we can improve. We get feedback. We're constantly collaborating with our stakeholders, looking at ways to get better. That's really what it's all about. We mentioned the permitting dashboard, not only publishing that information, but making sure that people are aware that you can see how we're performing at a departmental level, and when there are changes in those timeframes, we're constantly updating that on a daily basis, so they're seeing. So, you can't get any more transparent than that. A lot of departments are reluctant to publish their timeframes, but we feel like it's in the best interest to do so here in Montgomery County. And recognizing that that's up, we're accountable. So we have to make sure that we're doing the job in terms of meeting those target timeframes. The GIS maps, that was another major accomplishment from last year, and we're steadily honing that to make sure that we publish all the information that is helpful to our stakeholders. And so that's really a constant work in progress. You probably heard about our podcasts. Again, nothing necessarily new. Everybody does podcasts, but how many in the local government sector are doing that as a means of sharing information and engaging with your stakeholders? So we've got a lot of attention for the podcast. I understand a lot of other departments are now following suit, and that's a great thing that the businesses in the county, residents are getting educated on how to do work better with the county. The e-solar program, again, we talk about sustainability. This was one means of really enhancing and streamlining our permitting process. If we're going to be an advocate for climate change, this was one of the ways of making that happen, getting solar permits processed at a much faster rate. And that's working very well for us. And you know about the recipes for success. So we finally completed that guide, fortunately, with you guys' help. And I think the last thing is really getting all that translated to Spanish, which we're in the process of doing that. And we have garnered great feedback from that. And so we're very happy for that, but also recognizing that is a segue. That's going to be a way for us to use as a guide for all of our other permitting guides. You can see below that the homeowners guides was another one that we put out. What are the when permits are required in the county? That's always a big topic for homeowners in any jurisdiction. And we mentioned our upgrading our technology, our systems, migrating the system from to the cloud. That was an efficiency means for us. Also, we are in the process of upgrading. We went through the whole RFP process on our permitting system, and currently in negotiation with the selected vendor. So we are truly looking forward to having that contractor on board and making great strides in upgrading our system. Because there's a lot of things with that new or upgraded system that will benefit in terms of new features. We haven't really updated the permitting system in years, so this is long overdue. And about the recent code adoption, always a great thing when the jurisdiction's up on the latest and greatest in codes. And so now as we will begin the task of workshops to make sure that all of our stakeholders are educated. We know sometimes in the beginning of the code adoption, people are not familiar with the requirements. We want to make sure that we do the very best that we can to educate them as they submit their projects going forward. And the sign sweep last election year turned out to be a success for us. The other thing with customer service, how do you know you're doing well? That's a very important thing as we talk about providing exceptional customer service. That's one of the key things in being an outstanding department or world-class permitting. But how do you truly know what you're doing or how what your progress is? And the surveys, obviously, that's one important means of getting that feedback. So we're constantly reaching out to our stakeholders for that feedback. And fortunate that we are receiving, a good rate of satisfaction on that. And, working with other departments is always critical. And this synergy between DPS and DOT was one thing that occurred this past year. And we're streamlining that process with our right-of-way permits, taking up a lot of those reviews that DOT was doing, and we were able to do that in an effective manner. And we continue to collaborate with DOT as well as the other departments as needed. And the fee study, conducted last year was a success for us, and focusing on, how we handle the fee balance issue. And we feel pleased that we came out with a good outcome on that fee study. So it's a constant work in progress in terms of accomplishments. I mentioned the strategic plan coming underway right now. We just selected a vendor and hope to have that completed by the end of the calendar year. So we're really focusing on 5 years out. What are the things that we have to put in place, to hit our aspirations and goals? At this point, any questions or any follow-up?
Thank you so much for that overview. I think we can all witness that since you arrived 2 years ago, we have seen the improvement within DPS. I think I can say that with honesty. I have a question, and it relates to the backlog that we still have in the review process for both commercial and residential, especially the commercial front. We need to expedite things and make sure that we do it, efficiently. Can you give me an update of, because I thought you were considering using the surplus that you have to hire a third party to help you deal with a backlog that we currently have. There is no reason why we should not be on time. That's part of doing business in Montgomery County, making sure that we are, treating every time there is a day delaying a project, that's money that folks are spending, and you know that very well. We have had so many conversations on this, but I need to know, what are you guys doing proactively to ensure that we close that gap that we have?
Absolutely. You never want to hear backlog. You always want to be proactive when it comes to your reviews. Now, I would say when it comes to a backlog, I think it may be a little overstated. We have certain disciplines that might be a little further behind than others, and that's why I mentioned electrical. That's why we put in for a new electrical reviewer. Third-party review or inspection, I know they both are utilized by surrounding jurisdictions. It's a little bit of a touchy subject. I believe it has its pros and cons. If it's managed carefully, it can be very effective. If not, it can be the opposite. And we've seen some, from an auditing standpoint and performance standpoint, some of the disadvantages of having a third party. I don't want to get into specific failures, but I think with us, we just have to carefully manage the review process to make sure that we're on track. We have the tools available to be proactive, to manage on a regular basis our reviews across the board, be it zoning, land development, commercial and residential. And we need to make sure that we're steadily staying on top of those reviews so we do not fall behind. Admittedly, we have in the past where reviews have lagged, utilized overtime where we did not, necessarily. We felt like we had to do that as an immediate panacea, but that's not a permanent fix. You can't rely on staff, and overtime or even expedited reviews, which is an option that we make available to our applicants. The problem with the the expedited review option, it is contingent on the availability of the review staff, and many times they don't want to do the overtime reviews, or expedited reviews. So I agree, it's something that we have to look at. The other consideration with third party for Montgomery County, we have to work with our unions as well. So anytime that discussion comes up, it has to be carefully looked at, with our unions as to whether or not that is something that works. If we feel like, hey, this is something that could be very beneficial to us, we will certainly go to them and say, this is what we're proposing, and we haven't gotten to that point. It's just been up for consideration.
What's the deadline? What's the schedule to make sure that we're up to date with every single application that we have received? Because all of us, get questions from businesses and residents who are so frustrated because they think we're still very slow. It's a huge problem, guys.
For transparency, we gave you all the numbers. I could have gave you some numbers from our right-of-way audit thing. We're hitting like in the 90s and all that. So one of the issues we were facing last year as we were updating our e-plans, this is where everybody submits their plan through the electronic system. We were down for days, if not for weeks, during the upgrading. So these numbers, as you go into FY25, and as you know, the next few months, these numbers should drastically improve. Director Sabakan spoke about enhancement. I think one of the issues that we pinpoint was needing another plan review in commercial. That's where we are asking the program manager also going in commercial to help with distribution of the workload and keeping track of where each project stands to move it along quickly. So by next year, we'll be sitting in front of you. These numbers should drastically improve. I mean, and there is also, you're talking about we need other tools in our toolbox. Talking about third party, it's one thing, you know, if we want to go that route, some jurisdiction have it, you know, we don't have it. And Director Sabakan spoke about, you know, the union. We have looked at the third party that when we have a backlog to be able to get people professional that can come and assist us. Unfortunately, it's really hard. We even have a hard time filling some of our vacancies in commercial because of this being really expertise in that field. So it's not like we haven't looked at it. We have looked at those things, but to look at the big picture, the third party, that's something a little bit different. We did peer review. Peer review, we did it 2 years ago, and we thought we were going to get a great reception out of that. Honestly, we didn't get a lot of people wanting to use peer review. If somebody's certified by us as a peer review, it means if you utilize that person, your plan is going to go a lot quicker through DPS because that person is familiar and has been approved by us to review and approve and submit plans.
Got it. Thank you so much for that explanation. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Sabakan, Director Sabakan, congratulations on your 2-year anniversary. You know, and appreciate the time and dedication that you and your team take to have these presentations. I know there's a lot that goes into it because there's a lot that we share with you. I understand that relationship, and the information we share with you are usually residents and business owners who are watching their clock, trying to figure out what's going on. And you know, sometimes it is DPS having to take another look at something. As someone who has shared a fair number of constituent requests to you, sometimes it's the contractor who is not being honest with the homeowner, turning their own delay and blaming it on DPS. I'm aware of that. And it's unfortunate when that happens, but you and your team do clear that up, and the homeowner is now wise to what's been going on, and one way or the other they get progress because the contractor fesses up and takes attention. But all of this is to say that we want to move things as quickly as possible. So I want to go back to the IT upgrades, right? And better understand what that $3.5 million in upgrades went to, because I pair my question with a comment that you made at the beginning in saying that as you meet with the county executive on Friday, there's a need for more resources and helping and providing more staff to do a lot of these front-facing tasks and reviews. But I also think that more can be done through streamlining, through tape cutting, and through technological investments. And so I see the $3.5 million, and the question that immediately comes to mind is, how has that helped processes move forward or streamline information?
Exactly, Councilman Glass. When I say resources, it's you know, people always think, you know, in terms of people, but I was alluding to, again, the systems. You know, that's a great part of that. And when it comes to our permitting system, again, I spoke to the fact that our permitting system hadn't been updated for various reasons. If you know the story with the previous system that was the target solution for the department that fell through before I got here. So in the course of doing that, we held off on upgrading both our E-plan and our overall permit system, which is pretty big because that's time lost in gaining those efficiencies. We still have a system that, it's essentially two systems with our main permit system and the E-plan. Our new proposed system kind of synergizes or consolidates the two systems, which is an inherent efficiency for our customers. Not to mention all of the latest features that speeds things up and more importantly, makes the process more easy for our customers. So that will translate into a better overall permitting experience. But, it's the fact that we're in the infancy. We just started the process, negotiating with a vendor. The reality is we're not going to really likely see and implement it or even a soft launch of that new system until early 2026, being realistic. But it's coming. So in the meantime, we're getting our processes, our workflows ready, and to make sure that we can hit the ground running, with that enhanced system. The other things that we talk about with our systems, again, with our E-plan, I believe that ECON pointed it out. That probably, when you look at some of those timeframes, kind of outliers that you saw in the data, a lot of that is attributed to the outage that we had with our system. So when that system went out again, because we were, strategically upgrading our system, sometimes you have to take a step backward to make two steps forward, and that's essentially what we did with the migration to the cloud. It was a sacrifice we had to make to get better, to make our systems better. But now that we're cleared there, we believe with a new system, version 2.4 of our E-plan system, again, there's a lot of inherent features in that will make the experience, totally better for our customers. And so that was a sacrifice that we felt like we had to do, even though, there was an outage and it impacted our ability to get to reviews. So, we had to kind of catch up, when we lost days from not having a system to do those reviews. But we're fully cognizant of the timeframes. It's primarily on the commercial front. All the other divisions, we're pretty steady and hitting consistent numbers. Residential, we always, at the 95% rate. So same thing with land development. But commercial, again, we're making sure that we have a division chief that comes on board that can help really, lead that area. Because show me a permitting department where commercial construction is not, the focus. We know that's our bread and butter. And so that's our emphasis. And yeah, there are complaints. And we set up a customer bill of rights for that, probably for one of those very primary reasons, to make sure that people understood that they had rights, they had recourse. Not only is it about the time frames, but a lot of times, as you mentioned, Councilman Glass, some of the delays come through, let's just take the review process. There's an interpretation issue. And so I've had so many now that we implemented that customer bill of rights that come to me, and it's not so much that we were moving slowly, it was just the fact that the reviewer doing their job interpret things one way, and then by the time they spend the time coming to me, we were able to, get a decision made that, it's basically showing some flexibility, whether it's in the review. We had a job out in Gaithersburg that we were able to get them a use and occupancy, so they were able to, there were like 35 Montgomery County jobs that were in jeopardy. What was it, for kids, daycare or something like that? Sure. But that's the type of thing, it's not oftentimes just us, our inability to get to reviews. Sometimes it's, reviews get held up because of comments that the reviewers are giving them, which by and large are correct, but they have to then go, either back to their designers or in some cases come to me, and that's what we offer with that customer bill of rights, which I understand again other departments are now looking at utilizing. So,
well, I'm glad you brought up the customer bill of rights, because there have been a number of suggestions that this committee has made that you've adopted and have put on your website, and I think that's moving in the right direction. You know, one of the things that you've added to the website is the before you buy or lease, which I don't know if that's what you're interpreting as customer bill of rights, but it was a conversation that we had 6 months ago,
exactly.
Right? And so I appreciate you listening to the feedback, because we're all getting the same feedback from residents and business owners. One last thing, I have a bunch of questions, but I'm cognizant of the time. Speaking of communication and the website, the particular section before you buy or lease, I think it could have a little more context around it rather than just have immediate drop downs. But also on that website, and I'm looking at it right now, there's case management program, which is another drop down, but you click on it, and I'm just going to read the first sentence in this case management program website. The case management program provides a systematic approach to proactively assist customers with complex commercial projects. And it continues for probably another 20 words. People who are going to the website are going there to get help. And so the first sentence, I'm going to wordsmith this, but there's a bigger point here. The case management program provides help to assist customers with commercial projects. If you don't have money to hire an attorney, you don't have money to hire other Sherpas through the process, you're going on these websites just looking for help. The simplest language is the most helpful. I think we need to break away from bureaucratic jargon and just speak directly to the people who need it. And ultimately, that's the point that we've been trying to raise. Figure out how to improve processes and improve communication. I'm glad this is here. I'm glad all of those sites or links on the website are there, but I think we can refine them and make them more straightforward so that more people can receive the information that they need to move forward. So ongoing conversation. Look forward to hearing what happens after your meeting on Friday. I suspect we'll learn on March 15th, but thank you for today's presentation.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Sayles.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Rabakan, and everyone who has participated in this discussion. We know that in order for our economy to be successful, DPS has to be successful. And so I don't know if you've seen this, but Wallet Hub is ranking Maryland as the fifth worst place to start a business. And in order for us to raise our rankings as the largest jurisdiction in the state of Maryland, what are we doing to capture our success stories? And I know that we were surveying businesses who went through the process, but I'm just wondering how we are capitalizing on improving our relationships with all these improved and streamlined processes. How are we capturing that and then raising awareness about the improvements that we're making across sectors and industries?
Fifth worst, you say?
Fifth worst. I mean,
well, we're going to change that, at least that perception.
Okay.
Hey, I was at NACO, was a couple months ago, and the governor spoke to the priority of, surprisingly, number one, streamlining the permitting process. I get it. I'm glad that that's being highlighted. We saw the same thing in California with the wildfires. That gets me pumped. But we have to, yes, we have to make sure that we share with our stakeholders, everyone, the things that are going to change that perception and make them feel comfortable. It's a process. So I always say sometimes, a lot of the opinions that people have of permitting, and again, it doesn't matter whether you're talking here or Prince George's County, District of Columbia, I found that a lot of the negative perceptions are actually from like 10 years ago. And you know how the adage first impressions, sometimes those first impressions just carry on, and no matter what kind of improvements you make over the course of recent years, but you can't let that deter you. You know, you still have to focus on the positives. And I speak always to us celebrating our wins. I mean, that's just obviously an essential part of good leadership. But not only internally, let our stakeholders see. We have the ability to control the narrative, and that's what I think when you point to our podcast rather, that's that's a valuable tool to let people see the good that we're doing. You know, a lot of the focus is always, we would like to get permits faster, and sure, that's always going to be our emphasis. But that podcast, again, is one effective tool to change. You'd be surprised how many people just through our outreach and things like podcasts.
How many people are tuning into the podcast?
I'm sorry?
How many people are tuning into the podcast?
We're actually getting a lot of, especially once we went from audio to video, we started to see the increase in the amount of views. I mean, is it like viral type numbers? No.
Hundreds.
Over 5,000, 6,000, something like that.
Oh, okay. With a million residents, we have to go outside of our own utilities, and we should be speaking on other people's podcasts that have bigger viewership, going on any number of these news shows and talking about all of the streamlined services and the biotech corridor and the opportunities that we have. But we have to come outside of our comfort zone, and if there are tools that you need to set up meetings with people who will broadcast what we're doing to change how we do business here, we have to do that. It's not just, we're going to keep it in-house.
Yes.
We need to build upon all of the outlets that we have here.
That is an excellent point, Councilmember Sayles. I mean, we've gone on, I've been on myself personally, Aldea a couple of times, staff just came on a couple of weeks.
I don't know what
the industry, Maryland building, they're always, free to invite us. We get invited to those things, but I've always said we have to do more. We need to be out and engage in our community a lot more. And that's really one of our pillars, goals going forward, not to be very proactive with our community outreach.
Okay. And then you mentioned the IT upgrades. What's the deadline, the anticipated deadline for full implementation? Timeline?
Well, I would say, again, with the new system, it's the next calendar year. There's a possibility, depending on how much momentum we get, that, we could have a soft launch by the end of the calendar year, but I'd like to manage, I want to temper expectations.
Yeah.
But as far as, the other tools related to technology, those are more immediate. And, one of the things is just securing laptops for all of our personnel. We've always been out in front of most jurisdictions in terms of the use of technology.
Or iPads. I mean.
We've had iPads as well. But for some reason, But we want to make sure, we're on the cutting edge of technology. Again, you can't talk about being a world-class department if you don't have those types of tools, not only for your office staff, but your field staff.
Yeah, you have a surplus budget, so I'm just, reserved. So I'm just wondering how you're repurposing those funds to ensure we're meeting those world-class demands. And we have the technology, the infrastructure, etc. No one in your department should be without the technology and support that they need to do the best job of their ability.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then my last question is about any challenges that you anticipate with the implementation of Bill 724? Additional staff, resources?
The additional staff has come up. We'll analyze that very carefully.
Okay.
Because you have to understand that's a very common response, whether it's legislative law enacted or a new code regulation, it's a knee-jerk reaction. Oh, we need more people. And, it just needs to be carefully looked at because you may find, as Councilmember Glass pointed out, it could be something, thinking outside the box, that, you might have the resources already available. It just means maybe doing something differently. But when it comes to 724, we're going to look at, what is it going to take to really, make sure that we're doing it, the job effectively to enforce and ensure compliance. I always hate, whether it's a bill or a law, you enact something and you're selective with enforcement just because, then it was a waste of everybody's time. We don't want something to be done for show. We want to make sure we do it to the fullest. So we make sure that we have the adequate staff and resources available to enact that, to carry that out.
Okay, if we can get an update on that in 3 to 6 months, what the progress is on that.
Yeah, we know the regs are out right now before legal. We should be getting that in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll start really looking at what is it going to take to enforce it.
Okay, one last thing, I'm sorry. I know you mentioned customer service. Can you expand on what the service requests entail and why there's a negative direction change? That was on Circle 3.
That's always going to fluctuate. Those service requests are the 311s, working without the neighbor calling, somebody next door working without a permit, or it could be anything.
Okay.
And so, but we typically get, I want to say like 5,000 a year.
50 probably, around 50 a
Oh,
year.
I'm-
Yeah, all together with everything. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
Did you want to add?
Yeah, it's on. No, I mean, to answer to that question, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, so maybe we are doing better. People are not calling, or people call. Sometimes they have question. It's complaints. It's everything 311. Everything comes with triage it. And then there are some people that contact us directly. Some come from your office. Hey, what happened to this? We create a service request, and again, that's a service request. We want to get credit because we have to go look into it, investigate it. And it's coming from different places. But the number, I mean, it's down, but maybe by 1,000.
Yeah.
But that's just a portion of FY25. So you still got another 6 months to go, so those numbers could go up.
So how do you evaluate what's closed, resolved, positively, negatively? How are they marked?
So for me to understand your question clearly, to give a clear answer, can you repeat that question again?
Well, you said you get about 50,000 inquiries annually.
Right.
How do you close those out? And how do you identify which ones were closed negatively, positively, or are outstanding?
So we have a survey. So as part of our permit technician, every time they attend to a service, they'll send an email as a follow-up to the customer and ask them to rate us. But also in some other cases, it's a complaint. So the inspector will investigate it, and if it's a case, and they create a case, if there is something they have to investigate, and after that, based on their findings, they close it. We do quality assurance. So we take a percentage of those that the field supervisor look at it to make sure that, hey, it was done correctly, even if they have to call whoever called to interview them. Hey, how was your experience dealing with DPS? So we do some of those things too.
Yeah, it would be good to have some sort of dashboard where you could specify this was closed positively, this was closed negatively, this is still outstanding, this is still in this space. I mean, 50,000 are a lot of inquiries, and to not have any hard numbers about how those were resolved, addressed, what the trends were, if something is recurring, it would be really helpful to get some feedback on that. Whether you're working with 311 to assist with that data analysis, it would be helpful as we are reevaluating customer service in the department.
Yeah, I believe we are tracking those through reports. And as far as the frequency of the requests, there's a correlation when the more information you post online, and that's the intention. We want to try to put as much information on our website to reduce the amount of phone calls and email requests. Just basic stuff like putting property information reduces the amount of inquiries as far as, prospective buyers of a building now know, okay, here's all the compliance information. I don't need to call because it's on the website. But, the more information we put online, that's naturally going to reduce the amount of
Yeah, so it would be
requests.
helpful to understand what we're getting inquiries for, so that if we need to make improvements on what we're sharing online, how the customer service department is addressing complaints, resolving issues, it should be helpful in streamlining and also guiding the next steps. Thank you.
Do we know it?
Thank you very much. Last questions from Councilmember Balcombe.
Thank you. I know it's been a long morning. So first off, happy second anniversary to you, Director. For most of us up here, we just celebrated our second anniversary too. So we're all in this together. So I do want to just talk about the fund balance and how to use that most effectively. And I appreciate the question from Chair Fani-González about having a backlog and having a fund balance at the same time just doesn't make sense. But can you just clarify that the term backlog may not be the most appropriate term that we're using?
Yeah, I would say we're not in backlog status. There are ebbs and flows. There are periods where we may fall behind, but in the grand scheme, we're not in a backlog, status right now.
Okay. And then, so that's great. Then the question is, how can we get the numbers up into the 90 percentile across the board? And I know that that's tricky in that is this a one-time use of funds or is it a permanent use of funds? But it seems like there should be a way to have some additional staffing, flexible staffing. So perhaps you have part-time permanent staff or full-time temporary staff to manage how the work is done, and agree it's in your field, it's not, you don't have consistent work every day. It depends on the applications. But it seems like with the fund balance, which we are going to address when we talk about budget, because it's difficult to have that fund balance hanging out there when when there are so many other needs for funding. So I think I would just ask that you think about how you can look at this staffing. And I understand that your current staff may not want to do the overtime. Everybody has family and external commitments, but there's a solution to this. And for most other issues that we have to address, the obstacle is money. Right here, the obstacle isn't money. So I just encourage you to think about that. And I appreciate Councilmember Sayles' question on the rent stabilization. And again, with that, it's possible that you might need some temporary staffing to help look at how you will address complaints that come in. So just putting it out there, and we can follow up when we are faced with the budget.
I appreciate Councilmember Balcombe. I will point out, and it was mentioned earlier, when it comes to the fund balance, right now we've been a little conservative, rightfully so. Pointed out the revenue numbers are down, so we have to be very cautious. At the same time, I agree that there's no excuse. We should never be in a situation where delays are tremendous, and we have the resources necessary to cure that, and so we will absolutely do that. I will point out, it's not that we aren't looking. We have proposed $1 million for the technical assistance in the Green Bank. with all these new sustainability energy requirements, we fully anticipate there will be underserved, applicants that aren't necessarily familiar with, some of these requirements. And so the idea is to have those funds available to them, to have engineers, designers that will assist them with some of these, requirements that they may not be as familiar with because of the changing codes. And so that was one idea. And again, that's kind of tied to our grant. We mentioned that the last time, which we weren't sure where we stood on that based on the new administration, but I believe we will still be moving forward with that. But that was one idea, to say, hey, we can help. We have the resources to help them, and that was good utilization, I believe, with that $1 million.
Yeah, I was pleased to see that. I think it's perfect given where we are right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate that we don't have a backlog, we're just behind. Noted. But let's make sure that we close that gap. Okay? Thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you again, especially during budget. This meeting is adjourned.